My name is River Redwater. I am 39 years old, and I work as a campground manager for Oklahoma State Parks, overseeing Riverside camping facilities along the Red River, where I've learned that some areas receive supernatural warnings about dangerous camping conditions that can save lives when campers listen to phantom voices trying to protect them from deadly water hazards. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from, please. I've been managing Riverside camping for 13 years throughout Oklahoma's Red River Valley, maintaining campgrounds that provide access to fishing, canoeing, and tent camping along the unpredictable river that forms Oklahoma's southern border with Texas. And that can change from peaceful camping destination to deadly flood zone within hours. This happened last June while managing the Beavers Bend River Camp near Broken Bow, where I was overseeing weekend camping activities for families who had reserved riverside tent sites for fishing and water recreation along a particularly scenic section of the Red River. The campground accommodated up to 40 tent sites positioned on elevated areas that provided safety from normal river flooding while maintaining close access to fishing areas and water recreation that attracted families seeking outdoor adventures in Oklahoma's river country. Weekend weather forecasts showed normal summer conditions with no flood warnings or severe weather alerts that would require camping restrictions or safety modifications for riverside tent camping along the Red River system. Around 8 p.m. on Saturday evening, while conducting routine campground inspections, I began hearing unusual vocalizations coming from areas near the river that immediately distinguished these sounds from normal camping noise or wildlife activity along the water. The sounds included human voices calling warnings about water conditions and camping safety, but the warnings came from directions where no authorized personnel should be present and where campers weren't positioned according to campground registration records. The phantom voices were clearly attempting to communicate urgent information about river hazards and camping dangers, using terminology that suggested knowledge of Red River flood patterns and water safety that exceeded casual camping experience. Around 9 p.m., multiple camping families reported hearing the same warning voices, describing consistent messages about dangerous water conditions and advice to move camping equipment to higher ground, despite no official weather warnings or flood alerts from emergency management. The Johnson family from Tulsa reported hearing voices that specifically warned about flash flooding and advised them to relocate their tent from a riverside location to higher elevation areas within the campground. The Martinez family described voices that provided detailed information about Red River flood timing and water level changes that would occur during overnight hours, despite current weather conditions that didn't support flood predictions. Around 10 p.m., I realized that the phantom warning voices were providing accurate information about developing flood conditions that weren't being detected by official weather monitoring systems or emergency management flood prediction models. River gauge readings showed normal water levels with no indication of upstream precipitation or dam releases that typically cause Red River flooding. But the phantom voices continued issuing specific warnings about overnight water level increases. Based on 13 years of riverside camping experience and the consistency of phantom warning messages, I made the decision to implement voluntary campsite relocation for families camping in lower elevation areas near the river. Around 11 p.m., despite no official flood warnings, I began coordinating with camping families to move tents and equipment from riverside locations to higher ground camping areas that would provide safety if unexpected flooding occurred overnight. Most families cooperated with relocation recommendations, but several experienced campers questioned the necessity of moving their established campsites based on phantom voices rather than official weather warnings or visible flood indicators. Around midnight, while continuing to monitor river conditions and campground safety, the phantom warning voices became more urgent and specific about flood timing and water level predictions for the Red River camping area. The voices provided detailed information about flood arrival time, maximum water levels, and specific camping areas that would be affected by overnight flooding that seemed impossible given current river conditions and weather forecasts. Around 2 a.m., despite no visible changes in river conditions, I implemented mandatory evacuation of all riverside camping areas based on the increasingly urgent phantom warnings about imminent flash flooding along the Red River. The mandatory evacuation decision was difficult to justify using official weather data, but the phantom voices had demonstrated knowledge of Red River flood patterns that exceeded normal camping safety information. Around 3 a.m., families who had relocated to higher elevation camping areas were awakened by the sound of rapidly rising water as a massive flash flood swept through riverside areas where their tents had been positioned hours earlier. The flash flood occurred without any official weather warnings or upstream precipitation reports, but it reached water levels that would have been fatal for camping families who had remained in riverside tent locations. Most remarkable was that the flood timing and water levels matched exactly the predictions that had been provided by phantom warning voices hours before any official flood detection systems registered rising water conditions. Around dawn, when floodwaters receded and damage assessment could be conducted safely, we discovered that all previously occupied riverside camping areas had been completely inundated with water depths that would have drowned sleeping campers. Families who had initially resisted relocation based on phantom warnings expressed gratitude for the mandatory evacuation that had saved their lives despite seeming unreasonable at the time of implementation. Investigation into the flash flood revealed that upstream dam failures and heavy precipitation in remote areas had created flood conditions that weren't detected by official monitoring systems until after dangerous water had reached camping areas. The phantom warning voices had provided accurate flood predictions hours before any official weather service or emergency management systems detected the developing flood conditions that threatened riverside campers. When I reported the incident, I learned that similar phantom warning experiences had been documented at Red River camping areas throughout Oklahoma, with consistent patterns of supernatural flood predictions that had saved camping families from drowning. Traditional knowledge from local communities included understanding that Red River flooding could be predicted by spiritual voices that provided warnings to attentive listeners who respected traditional knowledge about river safety and flood hazards. I continue managing riverside camping because Red River recreation provides important family experiences and economic benefits for rural Oklahoma communities. But I now include phantom warning protocols in campground safety procedures and maintain respect for supernatural flood predictions. Current campground management includes enhanced monitoring for phantom warning voices, flexible relocation policies that allow rapid campsite changes based on supernatural flood predictions, and educational programs that teach campers to respect traditional knowledge about Red River safety. Some phantom voices along Oklahoma's Red River possess accurate knowledge of flood conditions and timing that can save camping families from drowning. When campers and campground managers listen to supernatural warnings that exceed official weather prediction capabilities, my name is Storm Windchaser. I am 42 years old, and I work as an emergency weather coordinator for the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management, specializing in tornado safety for camping facilities throughout Tornado Alley, where I've learned that tent camping during tornado season requires supernatural survival skills that exceed normal severe weather preparedness and emergency shelter protocols. I've been coordinating tornado emergency response for 16 years across Oklahoma's tornado-prone regions, managing severe weather safety for outdoor recreation areas, where camping families face unique vulnerabilities during tornado outbreaks that can produce multiple tornadoes simultaneously. This happened last April during a severe weather outbreak that generated 15 tornadoes across central Oklahoma within 6 hours, creating extreme danger for camping families who were spending the night in tent camping areas with minimal tornado protection throughout Tornado Alley. The tornado outbreak was forecast with sufficient advance warning to alert camping facilities, but the speed and intensity of tornado development exceeded prediction models and created survival situations that tested every aspect of tornado emergency preparedness for tent campers. Around 4 p.m., I received emergency coordination requests from multiple camping facilities throughout central Oklahoma, where families were camping in areas with limited tornado shelter options and where traditional emergency procedures weren't adequate for tent camping protection. Robbers Cave State Park near Wilburton was reporting 43 families camping in tent sites with access to only 2 small tornado shelters that couldn't accommodate all campers during simultaneous tornado warnings affecting the entire region. The camping families included visitors from other states who lacked tornado experience and who were unprepared for survival decisions required during multiple tornado warnings when emergency shelter capacity was exceeded by camping population. Around 6 p.m., the National Weather Service issued tornado warnings for 12 counties simultaneously, creating emergency management challenges where traditional shelter in-place recommendations weren't applicable to tent camping situations in areas with insufficient tornado protection. Emergency coordination responsibilities require developing survival strategies for tent campers who face tornado exposure without adequate shelter options and who needed alternative protection methods during life-threatening severe weather events. Working with state park managers and emergency response teams, I began implementing tent camping tornado survival procedures that exceeded normal severe weather protocols and required supernatural survival techniques adapted for extreme tornado exposure. Around 7 p.m., tornado touchdowns began occurring within 5 miles of major camping facilities, creating immediate threats to tent campers who needed emergency protection strategies that could be implemented quickly using available camping equipment and natural terrain features. Traditional tornado safety recommendations include seeking interior rooms in sturdy buildings or underground storm shelters, but tent campers had neither option and required alternative survival methods that could provide protection using camping equipment and natural landscape features. The emergency survival procedures included using tent camping equipment to create improvised tornado protection, identifying natural terrain features that could provide wind shelter, and coordinating group survival strategies that maximize protection for families camping in highly vulnerable situations. Around 8 p.m., multiple tornadoes were confirmed on the ground simultaneously throughout the camping region, creating survival scenarios where tent campers had to implement emergency protection procedures while tornadoes were actively approaching their camping locations. Families at Robbers Cave State Park reported seeing tornado funnels approaching their camping area and were forced to abandon their tents and seek protection using emergency shelter techniques that exceeded normal camping safety knowledge and required supernatural survival instincts. The camping families described experiencing survival guidance that seemed to come from sources beyond their own tornado knowledge, with instructions about optimal protection positions and timing that helped them survive direct tornado encounters. Around 9 p.m., I received reports that several camping areas had experienced direct tornado impacts, but camping families were reporting successful survival despite being caught in tent camping areas during confirmed tornado touchdowns. The survival reports described camping families who had received guidance about precisely when to implement protection procedures, where to position themselves for maximum safety, and how to use camping equipment for tornado protection in ways that exceeded normal emergency preparedness training. Most remarkable were accounts of camping families who reported feeling supernatural protection during tornado encounters, with experiences that suggested they had received assistance that enabled survival in situations where tent camping tornado exposure should have been fatal. Around 11 p.m., as the tornado outbreak concluded and damage assessment could begin safely, I discovered that multiple camping facilities had experienced direct tornado impacts without camping fatalities, despite dozens of families camping in highly vulnerable tent camping situations. The survival statistics exceeded normal tornado emergency outcomes and suggested that tent campers had received protection or guidance that enhanced their survival capabilities during extreme tornado encounters that should have resulted in multiple camping casualties. Investigation into the successful camping survival outcomes revealed consistent reports of supernatural guidance and protection that had enabled families to make survival decisions and implement protection procedures that exceeded their tornado emergency knowledge and experience. Traditional knowledge from Oklahoma Native American communities included understanding that tornado survival required spiritual awareness and respect for severe weather entities that could provide protection for people who maintained proper relationships with storm forces. According to tribal teachings, successful tornado survival in exposed situations like tent camping required understanding that severe weather contained both destructive and protective spiritual elements that could assist human survival when approached with appropriate respect and awareness. I continue coordinating tornado emergency response because accurate warnings and survival guidance save lives during Oklahoma's dangerous tornado seasons. But I now include supernatural survival protocols in camping emergency procedures and maintain respect for traditional storm knowledge. Current tornado safety procedures for tent camping include enhanced spiritual awareness training, traditional survival knowledge that incorporates supernatural protection methods, and emergency protocols that recognize the role of spiritual guidance in extreme tornado survival situations. Some aspects of tornado survival in Tornado Alley require supernatural awareness and spiritual protection that exceed normal emergency preparedness training, particularly for tent campers who face extreme tornado exposure without adequate conventional shelter options during severe weather outbreaks. My name is Bass Angler. I am 45 years old, and I work as a fishing camp safety coordinator for Oklahoma Fish and Wildlife, managing safety protocols at fishing camps throughout the Red River system, where I've discovered that some tent camping drowning incidents involve supernatural water entities that target fishing campers during their most vulnerable sleeping hours. I've been coordinating fishing camp safety for 14 years across Oklahoma's extensive river and lake systems, specializing in water safety and emergency response for fishing enthusiasts who combine camping with extended fishing activities in remote areas where help can be hours away. This happened last September while investigating a series of tent camping drowning incidents at the Texoma Fishing Camp on Lake Texoma, where experienced fishing campers had drowned in shallow water near their tent camping areas. Despite being skilled swimmers with extensive water safety knowledge, the fishing camp provided tent camping facilities specifically designed for fishing enthusiasts who wanted to camp directly adjacent to prime fishing areas, with tent sites positioned within 50 feet of shoreline areas that provided optimal fishing access during early morning and evening fishing periods. The drowning incidents involved experienced anglers who had been camping at fishing locations for decades and who understood water safety, swimming skills, and emergency procedures that should have prevented drowning accidents in relatively shallow water near established camping areas. The first incident occurred when veteran angler Tom Bradley was found drowned in 4 feet of water directly in front of his tent site. Despite being an accomplished swimmer who had been fishing Lake Texoma safely for over 20 years, Bradley had been camping alone for a 3-day fishing expedition and was discovered during routine campground checks when he failed to appear for his scheduled departure time, with no signs of struggle, medical emergency, or equipment problems that might explain the drowning. 2 weeks later, experienced fishing guide Lisa Martinez drowned under identical circumstances, found in shallow water near her tent camping area despite extensive water safety experience and swimming ability that should have prevented drowning in camping areas she had used safely for years. By November, 4 experienced fishing campers had drowned in shallow water near their tent sites, all involving skilled swimmers and water safety experts who should have been capable of avoiding drowning accidents in familiar fishing camp areas. The drowning pattern showed no correlation with weather conditions, water levels, or other environmental factors that typically contribute to fishing accidents, suggesting that normal water safety considerations weren't adequate to explain the fatalities. Investigation into the drowning circumstances revealed that all incidents occurred during nighttime hours, when fishing campers would have been sleeping in their tents, with bodies discovered in water areas that were easily accessible from camping locations. Most concerning was that the drowning victims showed no signs of trauma, medical conditions, or alcohol impairment that might explain why experienced swimmers and fishing safety experts would enter water during sleeping hours and subsequently drown in shallow areas. Security measures implemented at the fishing camp included increased lighting around tent camping areas, enhanced water safety equipment, and modified camping procedures designed to prevent accidental water entry during nighttime hours. But the enhanced safety measures proved ineffective when additional drowning incidents continued, despite comprehensive water safety improvements and increased supervision of fishing camp tent camping activities. Around December, while conducting overnight safety monitoring at Texoma Fishing Camp, I began experiencing phenomena that explained the tent camping drowning incidents and revealed supernatural water entities that were actively hunting fishing campers. During nighttime monitoring, I observed unusual water activity in areas adjacent to tent camping sites. movement patterns and sounds that suggested large entities moving through shallow water areas where fishing campers were most vulnerable during sleeping hours. The water entities demonstrated obvious intelligence and predatory behavior, conducting systematic surveillance of tent camping areas and showing particular interest in lone campers who were separated from other camping groups. Around 2 a.m., I witnessed direct evidence of water entities attempting to lure sleeping campers from their tents using acoustic manipulation that replicated sounds of fishing activity, emergency distress calls, and other audio designed to attract fishing enthusiasts into water areas. The acoustic manipulation was sophisticated enough to penetrate tent walls and influence sleeping campers, using sounds specifically chosen to appeal to fishing enthusiasts and trigger responses that would bring campers into contact with water entities. Most disturbing was the entity's apparent understanding of fishing psychology and camping behavior, using their knowledge of angler interests and camping routines to create luring scenarios that were difficult for fishing enthusiasts to resist. Around 4 a.m., I observed a water entity attempting to physically manipulate a camping tent to create emergency situations that would force camping families to approach water areas where the entities could initiate drowning attacks on vulnerable campers. The entity interference with camping equipment was designed to create problems that would require campers to leave protective shelter and approach water areas during nighttime hours when visibility was limited and when water safety was most challenging. Working with emergency response personnel, I implemented enhanced camping security procedures that included continuous overnight monitoring, improved tent camping protection, and modified fishing camp layouts that reduced camper vulnerability to water entity attacks. The security enhancements successfully prevented additional drowning incidents, but they also confirmed that the previous deaths had been caused by supernatural water entities rather than normal fishing accidents or water safety failures. Investigation into Lake Texoma's history revealed traditional knowledge from Choctaw and Chickasaw communities about water spirits that inhabited river and lake areas, and that could become hostile toward human fishing activities that disrupted their aquatic territories. According to tribal teachings, successful fishing in areas where water entities were active required spiritual preparation and respect for aquatic spirits that claimed territorial rights over fishing areas and camping locations adjacent to their water domains. Traditional fishing protocols included spiritual offerings and cultural practices designed to maintain peaceful relationships with water entities and prevent conflicts that could result in attacks on fishing enthusiasts and camping families. I continue coordinating fishing camp safety because angling provides important recreation and economic benefits for Oklahoma communities. But I now include supernatural water safety protocols and maintain respect for traditional knowledge about water entity territorial behavior. Current fishing camp safety procedures include enhanced overnight security for tent camping areas, traditional spiritual protocols for water entity relations, and emergency response training adapted for supernatural drowning prevention and water entity encounter scenarios. Some water entities in Oklahoma's fishing areas view tent camping as territorial intrusion, requiring aggressive response through drowning attacks that target fishing campers during their most vulnerable sleeping hours near water areas that provide optimal access for aquatic predators.